Hello, everybody. Today I have the pleasure of being with Jorgy Cruz, who has done a wonderful documentary called Funny Pains, which premieres on January 27th on TUBI. How are you doing today?
Happy and cold. I'm in Boston right now, and it's a tad cold today. So, but happy that the movie's out for free for everyone to watch.
That's right. Yes, I lost track of time. The 27th was 2 days ago.
Remember, time doesn't exist anymore. It's
No,
just
it doesn't. Not since March of last year.
yeah.
So tell me about Funny Pains, and tell me about the reason why you wanted to make this documentary.
Well, it all kind of just I wasn't pursuing. I always thought about doing a documentary, but I wasn't looking specifically for a subject. And I mean, I think at some point I did. I looked at some subjects, but they didn't do it for me. Didn't get me all excited because taking on a documentary is a big challenge. It's something that you need to be very sure about. There's a lot of unfinished documentaries out there, and I was living in New York. I went to a show, small comedy show, and actually my then girlfriend, now wife, was a bartender in that party a few years back, and I went in there, and it was a small show, and this lady came in and just killed it, and I'm a huge fan of stand-up, always have been, but the material that she used was pretty amazing and very raw, and I was drawn to it, and I just told my wife, like, I need to talk to her after the show, see if she would be open to like shooting or doing a camera test or something. That's just what I did. I followed her. We spoke, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's go." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." So the first time we shot was maybe a couple of weeks later. I had no idea what to expect, and the first day that I shot, I remember being on the subway afterwards, just being like, "Oh my God, this is a special human. This is a special story. I think there's a lot here." So I just followed through. No funding, no money, just uh, I had a camera. My DP back then wasn't even a DP. He was mostly a videographer, and he had another camera. And we just went in and we shot the whole thing, man.
Of course, we're talking about, excuse me, Wendi Starling, correct? And
yeah, Wendi Starling is the subject. Yes.
So my question to you: how was it for you getting so personal into her life? Does it make it awkward at times? How do you work around sometimes to maybe some questions that you want to ask that are difficult?
I think as you know, Wendy was an open book from the get-go, but at the same time, there's some stuff that you're not comfortable, asking. And you have to, like, I learned how to ask questions without asking them. Is that makes any sense? There's some pauses, some silence between two human beings when there's a camera rolling that you just need that to happen and not jump in because it's awkward and jump the gun and just ask a question that is not, it's not the moment for. So I learned that pretty quick. And I was lucky enough that she was open, like really open with everything. That really helped me out. But at the same time, when it was, after you see the film and you see what she talks about, especially a man asking about that, it can be very delicate. So I was just, I began to be, upfront with her before we would shoot. I'll be like, hey, I may ask you about this at some point, just so you know. Not asking permission, just telling her what I was going to do. Because there's a weird power struggle with the subject always. You need to be respectful, but both of you are in charge, but both of you are not. It's a weird balance that you need to find. And that it helped me that she was open, and I was very sensitive and very mindful of not asking the wrong thing at the wrong time. Okay. Because you can I asked the same thing 3 times and you get 3 different answers depending on the day and the mood, especially with Wendy. So I was very careful with that.
So a lot of times with the stand-up comedians that have made it, you often hear about those stories like, oh, back in the day we used to do these clubs, or we have to do this and we have to do that. I was very I was glad that with your documentary, because with Wendy we kind of get to see that as it's happening, and as fun as it might seem for us audience members, you don't really know all of the struggles that comedians go through. Anything that surprised you about the backstage of a comedian's life?
Oh, so many things. I'll tell you two. One was watching this guy. Remember, we came into this club, and he was on stage. He was on. He was very all over the place, very, loud and intense. And he had the crowd in the palm of his hand. That guy came off stage. And he just went to a corner, sunk his head into his phone, and did not even say hi to the other comics. He was just very isolated, quiet, did not make eye contact. And I asked, like, "Hey, what's up with this guy? He okay?" He's like, "Oh yeah, he's like he never talked to anyone. He's very timid. That's just who he is." I'm like, "How do you go on stage and be that person and then come out and be this person?" Right? So that's the first time that I started to get that there's a persona on stage. There's an element of truth that the comic brings to the stage, but at the end of the day, it's a persona. And like they say, we're professional liars. Everything we say is exaggerated, it's elevated, but there's a kernel of truth in everything we say. That very surprised me a lot. And then a hard part for the documentary to get into was how much money they make when you're not a big star. So they're very protective of that. But I got a lot of information eventually. And when you see this person just killing on the stage in a New York club, and you find out that they're getting paid $20 and you get 2 drinks, but no fancy drinks, just beers. I'm like, what? It's crazy. So the crowd is there, 100 people, 200 people, whatever, to see that person getting like $50. Like well-known comics that you've seen on Netflix, that you go like, oh, this person's famous. Oh, he's headlining on this club in New York City. Oh, yeah, they give him 250. So it's pretty mind-boggling.
I think despite the fact that we learned all of these truths about what they struggle with, there's a moment in your film that I loved, and it's when she shares the recording that she made in a moment that she realized that she was living her dream, and she plays that back to herself whenever she's feeling down, and I found that very inspiring. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, 100%. Because the film took a turn by the middle of shooting. We shot for the whole process took 5 years, and we shot a lot. But by the middle of it, I began to realize, like, to be a successful comic in New York, even if you're getting paid $25 a night and you have a day job or whatever, it's very hard. To that crowd is difficult. This is a jaded, tired, most of the time broke crowd. That if you come in with observational humor, you're screwed. You're not going to make it. You need to come in with, the material that she uses, that kind of thing. And I started to question, like, what is success?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that money? Is it getting that special on Netflix? Is it getting a sitcom? Like, what is it? Or is it I get to do this every night whenever I want in the toughest city in the world, and I make strangers laugh, and that fulfills everything. Because think about it, every comic that I met, most people have some darkness in their past and whatever. But a lot of comics that I met, they all had in common that they understood sadness and darkness a little bit different than most of us. They face it. They know it exists. And I find that they want to make us laugh just to pull us away from that darkness, because they know that exists. They know they might, they know that you might have some of that darkness and sadness and trauma in your life. They just want to pull you away from it, taking away the strength, the power from that trauma or that sadness that you have. And it's that to me is success. Doing that is very successful. Economically, maybe not. So when she played that back, it's like, hey, I live in the city that I want to live. I do what I want. I'm working at the clubs that I used to, dream of and watch online. Be like, oh my god, one day I'll be there. Now I'm a regular and I'm headlining. So I'll keep doing it, even when I don't want to do it. I just keep doing it. That to me is a way, it's success.
What was your favorite thing about Wendy that you learned about her in this whole 5-year process?
Um, she can be very inspirational in a very kind of like unorthodox way. She can be very inspirational because she's not trying to be inspirational. She's not trying to inspire anyone, and she does. Because what she talks about on stage, I saw a lot of people going, to talk to her after she got off stage all the time. She got a lot of emails, you know. Um, a lot of people reaching out, and um, that was my favorite part, that she could talk about these things without trying to like milk it to a way that I can like gain the crowd, and by being empathetic, or she was just being raw with it and connecting with people in that way. Just tapping on that frequency of people that have dealt with that type of trauma, and taking that power away from the trauma at least a little bit for a moment, and starting a conversation. So I think that was definitely my favorite thing. And she's hilarious. Like shooting with her, I mean, it could be kind of, some days were not great, and that's normal. But when she was on, she was funny. She was having a good day. It was a joy to shoot. It was hilarious.
From the moment you met her to watching the final cut, how was that experience for you to finally see it all come together? Because I'm sure, some things maybe were shot early on and then other later that you maybe were like, oh yeah, that's right, we did that. How was watching the final cut for you?
Wow, it was the process of shooting a documentary is fun, but it's also traumatic, and it's very, you get exhausted, but you're excited at the same time. It's a weird experience. I had the task to not only direct, but then edit the film.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember I even had dreams of how the movie was going to play, how it was going to go. And I started editing separate scenes that I wanted. I didn't know the order, I was going to connect them. And then it just happened. Don't ask me how. I'll be lying if I said I had this method, or no. My office looked like, remember that movie, Beautiful Mind,
Yes.
when he had all the stuff written in the windows. Like that was my office. I was just day by day. I did this weird system that at the end didn't work, but the movie came together by itself. And I remember the day it was done, and I was like, okay, this is the final cut. It's done. We watched it, and I was like, I was pretty much in shock, because I really didn't know that I had it in me to edit that, and I had to do it in a small window of time, because of the distribution deal that we wanted to get and all that stuff. And I was pretty tired, but I felt so proud, and I saw how the movie evolves, how you see the first shots are kind of awkward and a little bit shaky, some of them, and then they start to getting more refined, and the questions and the answers, everything that happens. So I'm still blown away about it, but I just felt really proud about it, man.
Well, you should be. It's a great film, and I really think that everyone should watch, especially if you're a fan of stand-up comics, because, like you were mentioning, a lot of people don't know that there's not that much money behind it, until you maybe even if you get your own show, sometimes it's not all there. So, which brings me to my wrap-up question for you: is what do you hope people leave with after watching your documentary?
I think I think I want people to live with the documentary with a couple of things. First of all, going back to, what is success? What is when you make it, quote unquote? What is that really? Define that. Doing what you love. The importance of doing what you love. I do what I love now, and it took me years. It took me years to make real money. It took me years to be able to say to my wife, "Hey, let's have a kid. We can handle it now." The effort it's so cheesy to say, but there are no shortcuts, especially when it comes to film. I want people to get inspired about her story. I want people to see what, you know, we're all connected. And when you see people on the street, when you see people on the stage making you laugh, when you see a person on the train, it's the same person. You know, we're all going through a lot. We're trying to make it. We're trying to be happy. And I think she's a prime example of that. And also, you know, pulling back a little bit the curtain on comedy and what it takes. You know, I showed a little bit how the sausage is done, just a little bit, because I didn't want to ruin for everybody. But, you know, it's taken me a while to laugh again at stand-up, you know, because of that.
Wow.
And now, yeah, because I saw, you know, the magician told me how it's done, and it's just kind of tough now, you know. So I want people to understand that we're all going through a lot, and but if we stick to it, we can make it, you know.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Jorgy, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And congratulations on your documentary, Funny Pains. I really hope that this isn't your last one. I hope we get to see you again soon with a different topic. Are you working on anything else right now?
Yes, I am, Manny. As soon as I finished that final cut, I picked up the camera and started the second project. It's an exciting one. I can send you a teaser that no one has seen yet. But I'm shooting, I think I'm shooting with 3 different subjects now, all
Wow.
women as well, in a heavily male dominated world that is changing. It's very more accepting, which is independent pro wrestling.
Oh,
It's
great.
not it's not a documentary about wrestling. It's about 3 women, 1 Latina, one from here, another one, also from here, Puerto Rican too. So their experience in the circuit and what they have to do to make it, and they're all making it big now. So we have some great footage already, and we're working on it. COVID, of course, messed up everything, but we're gonna pick up this year and keep on shooting.
As a big fan of wrestling myself, I am very excited to hear that. And I look forward to seeing whatever you want to show me.
Oh, perfect. I'll send it over. Thank you for having me, Manny. Any information can be found in funnypains.com. We're in social media, Funny Pains Movie, and on TUBI for free. You don't have to even to sign up. You just play it. You're going to get a couple of ads, and that's it.
I'll be sure to spread the word.
All right, Manny. Thank you so much.
Jorgy, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.